Shalom Aleichem, everybody. It's a time now of just to be misbeinen in a few seconds. This musig of inauguration. When inauguration of the Torah, we have the same Melech, Malchei Amlachim, that stays with us. Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimlech. We're on the same King. There's no change within us, and therefore Klal Yisrael is zeicha to be the Am HaNivcha. And let's be mizdabik and dveikus and limud HaTorah, which connects us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, discussing today about Chayla She'ein Bei Sakana, we have to just go back a little bit to differentiate between a Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana and then move along to Chayla She'ein Bei Sakana and see the differences in Afkaminas La'alacha, and with that we'll have a better understanding. If we understand a little bit more deeper Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana, we'll have a better understanding in Chayla She'ein Bei Sakana. And hopefully we'll get to all those cases that the last few minutes that I heard you discussing about heartburn and the chulu. We know the famous Yushalmi that the Mechaber brings down in Shin Chav Ches Siv Beis, Hazor is Meshubach v'Anishal Meguna v'Hashoya L'Areza Shoifech Damim. When it comes to Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana, we know that it's a mitzvah to be Mechal Shabbos. Hazor is not only it's a mitzvah, you mezarez, you meshubach, and if you ask questions about it, Hareza Shoifech Damim. The Shulchan Aruch brings it down in two places in Shin Chav Ches Siv Beis, Siv Yud Gimel, Kol Hazor is L'Chal Shabbos, She'yesh Bei Sakana Hareza Meshubach. And really, it's brought down in Halacha. Beis Yosef brings it b'shem the Trumas Hadeshen. You need to be mazir. The Rav has to tell his Bnei Iroi, don't ask me any questions. When it comes to Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana, you can't ask any questions. You have to go ahead, be zaris, do whatever you can to save the person. That's by a Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana. A Chayla She'ein Bei Sakana, we don't have these klalim in the Yishalmi, and therefore, over there, it is a time to ask the Rav, the Marayra, what the halachas are, and to try to get to understand if he's, what type of darga is he in this Chayla She'ein Bei Sakana, and what you could do for this Chayla She'ein Bei Sakana. Now, the question is, if a person's mesupik, this person's laying in front of him, if he's a Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana, Chayla She'ein Bei Sakana. He doesn't know what the darga is. You see someone passing out. Doesn't know, is he a Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana, Chayla She'ein Bei Sakana. The halacha is obvious that since he's a suffix, that he might be a Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana, you don't go ahead and ask him, you don't ask a Rav what the halacha is. You go ahead and you Mechal Shabbos clearly, with definite. And on that you have the same Yisayid of Kol Hazor, Zarez, and Meshubach. So you're going, you see someone that you don't know if he's standing with a Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana, if this person's a Chayla She'ein Bei Sakana, but you go ahead, the suffix over here, it's at suffix, the halacha is Pashut, Vazner writes it in the Tshuva, but it's obvious that anytime you misupik even a Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana, you are Mechal Shabbos without any Shabbos, even though it's only a suffix, but you Mechal Shabbos on a suffix. So this din of Chayla She'ein Bei Sakana and all the halachas that we're going to discuss today, that's only when you know for sure he's a Chayla She'ein Bei Sakana. Because anytime you're doubtful that he's a Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana, like we're saying, the Yishalmi applies of mitzvah l'chal of Shabbos v'arzorez reis meshubach v'ashoya l'reis shoifech dam. Now, the Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana, we know, famous Maggid Mishnah, I'm sure you discussed it, that goes into the Geder, Machlekes and the Achreinim. If you go ahead and you can even be Mechal Shabbos things that aren't needed for the Chayla to help him for the Machla. Kolzman, he goes and he's a Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana. It's a Meiri like this. Also in Yumad Pei Dalid, and the Maggid Mishnah goes on the Rambam in Perek Beis Halacha Yudalid, that even Dvarim that aren't going to go ahead and take away the Chayli, but a Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana has the Gedarim that you Mechal Shabbos for anything that he wants. And the Shulchan Aruch passes like that. The Magen Avraham goes with that. The Chaya Adam, the Kid Shulchan Aruch, goes Oisin like Kol Masher Gidon Lasis like B'chayil for Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana. You do whatever it takes, anything that is used to B'chayil, even if it's not going to help him for his Chayli. If so, the Chayla She'yesh Bei Sakana is lying in bed, and he tells you, "Could you open the light for me?" Light is not literally going to help him for the chayli. Lav dafka has anything to do with the chayli, but he's more comfortable with the light on. The halacha is, Meikar Adin, Shulchan Aruch Paskins, you're allowed to do anything that's rogel b'chayil, the same way in the weekday. You would go ahead and open the light for him. It's mutter gomer to open the light even though you don't see. It's not taking a pill of medicine or something that's going to help him for the chayli, for the actual chayli. But a chayli sheish b'sakana, Meikar Adin, you're allowed to do that. The Shulchan Aruch HaRav writes, Bal Nefesh, Yachmel Atzmeh, the Shulchan writes, Nachal Nizar. But anything that even it's not needed, Meikar Adin is mutter. Not only that, even though the Shulchan's writing that Bal Nefesh Yachmel Atzmeh, the Shulchan Aruch HaRav is writing Bal Nefesh Yachmel Atzmeh, Nachal Nizar. But the Sharatzian, Mishabur brings down in Sharatzian, Shin Chavches, Ois Yud Aleph, Ilu Tzarech Harbe, if you need it, even though it's not needed for the chayli, again, he just wants to read right now and he needs the light open. He wants to see the news. He needs to hear the news. Then it's mutter, even the machmir, and hold that it's mutter in such a scenario because since he's a chayli sheyesh b'sakana and the gedarm of a chayli sheyesh b'sakana, me'ikar adin, everything is mutter like the Maggid Mishnah. Even this Aruch HaShulchan, Shulchan Aruch HaRav that say, Bal Nefesh Yachmel Atzmeh Nachal Nizar, but still anything that is a tzarech harbe, or anything that you could, that possibly could make him, could bring weakness to himself, even though it's not a refuah for the chayli. It's just that itself will bring some weakness to himself, zok to Mishnah Berurah and the Sharatzian, and so to in the Be'er Halacha, and the V'maskal Kol, or to be mechazikim, therefore it's mutter. Someone's writing a question that 35 years ago upon the founding of the West Side of Tzala, I was tasked with David Feinstein. I couldn't read the rest. To ask him to give us. Good. Okay, fine. So now, so that's a lot to do with the Chadash Yesh B'Sakana. You have also what's the geder of Chadash Yesh B'Sakana, which means you're walking down the street with your friend, and he says, I see a bird coming towards me. I'm worried the bird's going to kill me. Let's go. Let's be Mechal Shabbos. Is that called a suffix? We said any suffix of Pikuch Nefashis, any suffix of Chadash Yesh B'Sakana, any worry, you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos. So what are the Gedarim that we tell you that, yeah, this is a Chadash Yesh B'Sakana, this is a suffix Pikuch Nefesh, you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos. So the Chazon Ish, in Olas Siman Chav Beis, Sifkat and Lamed Beis, explains as follows. He says, like Mikri Safik Pikuch Nefashis B'Dvarim Asidim Shebahoiva Ein Lehem Kol Zeicha. If something that has no Zeicha by anyone, by this person, he just got worried for that, but Be'etzim, there's no Zeicha. U'be'emes she'ein onu b'kiyim ba'asidus u'ba'amim she'machashvinam lahatzolam eshapech l'royetz. V'hilkoch ein donim b'shvel asidus u'chaykus. So Chazon Ish tries to be magda to us what's considered a suffix Pikuach Nefashis. And he says that something which is no zeicha by people, but this person decided that maybe it's a Pikuach Nefashis. Zok to Chazon Ish that does not make a suffix by us to be considered Pikuach Nefashis. The Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and Shulchan Shlomo, in the beginning of Siman Shin Chav Tes, on Hilchos Shabbos, he writes, what's considered suffix Pikuach Nefashis? What's the gvul? So he said that anything for Roiv B'nei Adam, run away from it. Roiv B'nei Adam levrayach b'zeh kebrayach b'nei sakana harei chashav suffix Pikuach Nefashis v'kor be'ka'agavna v'chai b'hem. But avalim ein Roiv B'nei Adam nivhalim. Most people are not worried about that. And this person decides, you know what, let me worry about this. That is not going to the gather of suffix Pikuach Nefashis to be Mechal Shabbos for him. And Omek and Afkamina, Halacha L'maisa, the Mishnah Halachas of Menashe Klein and his Truvis, Chelik Dalet Siman Nun, declares if someone is a Chadash Yesh B'Sakana, and they're running to go ahead and go to the doctor. They know the doctor went to Florida for 2 weeks, and it's within 2 weeks. It's after he declares first if it's after 2 weeks. Maybe he stayed in Florida. Doctor, no, that's not a suffix. Avadi allowed to be Mechal Shabbos. But in a scenario where he told you he's going for 2 weeks, and now it's within 2 weeks, it's Pasha, you can't be Mechal Shabbos. We can't start saying that that's a suffix. So we're trying to be magda a little bit that what goes into the category of a Chayla Sheyesh B'Sakana, and when you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos towards him. The famous Rav Moshe that discusses when someone has temperature, when he has fever, what's the number that a person is considered a chayla sheyesh b'sakana, and he goes out of the get of chayla she'ein b'sakana. So Moshe writes that if it's 102 degrees, Moshe Chelik Aleph and Niggas Moshe Tzimukuf Chav Tes, 102 degrees is already considered fever that we could be Mechal Shabbos, that's considered a chayla sheyesh b'sakana. And the Debetziner Rav, in his Truvas by Moshe Chelik Vav Siman and Zion, he's very bothered. He says, how could you be kaveya an amount of, to tell me that 102 degrees is already considered someone who's a chayla sheyesh b'sakana? He says the chayra, it's totally on each matzav of everyone, the way some people could handle more higher degrees and some people less. Everyone's made out of different blood and different misagim to tell you that this should be the degrees that should be considered a chayla sheyesh b'sakana. So he's very bothered with it. And he says the person that has many times, the person has 102 degrees, he takes Tylenol, he's fine. How could you go ahead and call him a chayla sheyesh b'sakana? So too the Tzitz Eliezer in Chelik Ches Siman Tazayin brings her Moshe, and he's very much to me. He says if you're going to come and be mateh chilul Shabbos because this person has 102 fever, he says, so you'll have to be Mechal Shabbos. Anyone that has a cold, go ahead. If you don't take care of it, it might come to chayli. How could that be? Very matmiya on this number that Moshe gave 102 degrees to be considered a chayla sheyesh b'sakana. And there's medicine to take for it. You take Tylenol, you're fine, and that's what we're going to get. Hopefully, we'll discuss a little bit more. We're discussing in a moment about chayla sheyesh b'sakana. So we know the gdarim of a chayla sheyesh b'sakana, you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos, and now we explain so too a suffix of chayla sheyesh b'sakana also goes into those gdarim. The chay behem, zaris behem, the chol anishal areas of shefach damim goes into the same categories by a vade chayla sheyesh b'sakana, chayla suffix sheyesh b'sakana, and that I'm sure you learned earlier a makash chalol, shinayim, all those halachas that the Shulchan Aruch discusses till Sif Yud Zayin. Now, Sif Yud Zayin comes along, the Shulchan Aruch discusses these halachas of a chayla of she'ein b'sakana, which we're going to discuss today. A chayla she'ein b'sakana, there's gedarim, it's a term that's used, but there's three gedarim to it. There's a chayla she'ein b'sakana, there's a chayla b'miktsas, and then there's a mechosh ba'alma. The chayla she'ein b'sakana is something which is, he's a chayli, he's sick, he's not well, but he's a sakana, he's not a sakana, we're not worried for death. There's a chayli b'miktsas, which means it's not even a gedder, it's less of a dag of chayli she'ein b'sakana. He's not even a gedder of a chayli she'ein b'sakana. He's less than that. He's not well, but he's not, you don't call a doctor for it. And then there's another thing, a mechash ba'alma, someone who has a headache, a mushal, someone who has a headache, that would be considered a chayli, that's a mechash ba'alma, that's the lowest dag. Now, I saw you the last moment you discussed about heartburn. I asked Rav Belsky, Zechat Tzadik Levracha, who was Negeya taking Tums for heartburn. So this is not the share for it, but the whole Schikas Amamonim taking pills for Rafua. So the question was, there's a big debate if, let's say, you're eating cholent and that gives you heartburn. So the question is, if it's a chayli, which is just a michesh ba'alma or chayli b'miktsas, so you're not allowed to go ahead and take care of food. So the question was, if you could take it before the chayli starts, you take it before you eat the cholent, let's say, that gives you heartburn, you'll take it before, then you're not a chayli at all, then it's mutter to take whatever you want. That was the shaila. It was a big day in the Paiskim, not to be mad. But Negei the shaila, Babelsky told me that heartburn is considered a chayla sheyesh by sakana, and you're allowed to do whatever it takes to get rid of heartburn. Agav, and I think they say that he suffered terribly from heartburn, and that's how he knew exactly what madrega heartburn was, and he felt that heartburn is considered a chayla sheyesh by sakana. If you're not going to take care of it, that would lead you on to a chayla sheyesh b'sakana, and that's already considered that you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos. Now,
heartburn leads to acid reflux. Could be Rahman in severe cases can cause cancer of the esophagus. That's how I understand. And therefore, many of us who have acid reflux, the acid comes up. The doctors will tell you that that's dangerous. So maybe that's what Rebelsky was referring to, and that comes from heartburn. Sorry.
Oh. Okay. No, it's good to tell me that. Yeah, I did hear that. I heard that from others also, and I heard that Rebelsky suffered from it terrible. Yes. So, yes. That's a whole different question that maybe we'll discuss a little bit. Is if there's an eitzah to do without coming on to the heart, coming on to Tums or whatever you acid, any medicine. If I could take it with, they say, almonds, I think gets rid of heartburn or something like that. Am I mechuyev to go ahead and take the almonds? Or no, once it's mutter, then everything's mutter. But again, Rebelsky felt that that's called the chedesh yesh. Sakana said it's mutter gomer. He told us to be klar. It's mutter gomer to take Tums. That's the achel coming in, but he felt, and he understood the metzius, he felt that it's mutter gomer to go ahead and take Tums. Okay, Aga. Now, so let's get back to what we were saying. There's three categories of chayli she'en by sakana. There's really one category, it's considered chayli she'en by sakana, but then there's another two things that come along with it, which is a chayli b'miktzas and a mechash ba'alma. Now, the Mechaber comes along and tells us what the halacha is with chayli she'en by sakana. So the Mechaber in Shimon Shin Chavches, Sif Yud Zayin, which you saw today, says chayli she'nofal machmas cholya lemishkav. He had to go, he fell to his bedridden, because he was not feeling well, the aim by sakana. So that's how the Mechaber categorized what a chayli she'en by sakana is. What is that? Someone that fell to his bed, that's considered a chayli she'en by sakana. He can't handle being up, he has to go lay down. That's already a chayli she'en by sakana, and that comes along, the Mechaber, and tells you 4 days, which we'll get to in a few moments. So, to categorize what is considered a chayli she'en by sakana, zok the Mechaber, someone that falls to bed, someone that can't handle being up. He's in pain, he's not feeling well, he's not going to die from this, he's not close, nothing like that. But what's happening to him is just to something which is chayli she'nafal lemishkav. Now, let's clear. Do I need the metzius of nafal lemishkav, or which means I need him to go to bed and say, yeah, I can't handle it, nafal lemishkav, or is just enough the fact that he knows he's too weak and he would be nafal lemishkav, but he's actually not going to be nafal lemishkav? Then itself, let's discuss taking aspirin, which is Tylenol or whatever. Let's say that's what someone that's not feeling well, normally you would take that. On Shabbos, that's the shayla, chikas amamonim, let's say you're not allowed to take it, but if he's a chayla she'en b'sakana, you're allowed to take Tylenol. So when this person, he wasn't b'mitzias nafal mishkav, but he could go nafal mishkav, but he wasn't mitzias nafal mishkav. Do we need that he should actually be nafal mishkav and then take the Tylenol and get him out of bed? Or the fact that this person would fall to his bedside and now he didn't, that itself would be a ptur of him doing whatever he's allowed to do, as we'll see in a few moments. So the Mechaber's lashon is again chayli she'nafal machmas cholya lemishkav, is mashma that the person actually fell to bed. She'nafal machmas cholya lemishkav, he actually fell to his bed. That itself is considered dafka. Then is when we give him the heter, that payim of chayli she'en b'sakana. But if this person didn't fall to bed, he's awake and he's okay, but he's actually in a moment that he would want to go to bed, but he's not going to bed, then he would not go into the gather of nafal mishkav. That's how pashtus you would read the Mechaber. But that is not what Rebelsky told me. He told me clearly, and I think it's pashut like that nafal mishkav doesn't mean that b'mitzias he fell to bed. It just means that he doesn't have koyach, that he would fall to bed, and that's enough to be considered a chayla she'nafal mishkav, which is considered a chayla she'en by sakana. Now we have to understand that. we're telling you now that Rebelsky Paskin, and I think most Paskin agree to this musig, that it doesn't mean that you literally went to the bed and now you came out of bed and you took the towel and you're fine. It means the fact that you're so weak, you feel like, oh, I want to go to the bed, and the fact, even though I didn't go to bed, that's enough to go ahead, like we're saying, to pattern him from this, to give him a din of chaylish ein b'sakana. But how about what's considered a person needs to go to bed, which means if a person didn't sleep the night before, so you wouldn't consider him a chayli, he just didn't sleep. So he's weak and he's tired, and therefore he's enough of the mishkav, he has to go to bed. Are we going to consider him as a chayli she'ein b'sakana, or such a person, we tell him, no, that you don't go into the category of chayli she'ein b'sakana, you are just a tired person, or let's say someone is hungry and he's weak. So he feels, you know what, I'll go to bed. But the reason why he's going to bed is not because of any chaylis, per se. He's going to bed because he feels that he just needs to be in bed because he's tired, he's hungry, he's fasting, he's doing whatever it is. Does he have now a heter to go ahead and take ta'ana? Does he have a heter to do something because of that chayli? Is that considered a chayli she'ein b'sakana? So if we look at the Ramah says as follows. The Ramah on that Shulchan Aruch says, before the Shulchan Aruch is going to explain what you're allowed to do for chayli she'ein b'sakana, is the Ramah, oi, sheyesh lo michus shemitztar, v'chala mimenu kol gufay, which means clearly, he is not sick. He is not a chayla. He's not a chayla she'ein b'sakana. He's a person, a regular person without any sicknesses. Just what? He has a michush that's making him bitzah, and therefore weakens up his whole body. Sha'oz, Dr. Mavaita, sha'oz afa pi sha'hoilech, knofal mishkav dami. Yeah. I see Rabbi Golding is going back to Tums. I didn't mean to discuss. We could discuss it. Maybe we'll get back to it closer to the end of the shir. So, yeah, okay. Dr. Lederach is asking another shaila here that we see people push themselves. Okay, okay. So let's try to explain. So we're discussing here again. The Ramah coming to be Ma'asav on the Mechaber, and I'll be pashas. The Mechaber is not arguing on this. The Ramah is quoting it. Of a Magid, and the Mechaber is not arguing this. The Mechaber explained what does it mean a chayli she'ein b'sakana means nafal mishkav, which means he's not well, he's a chayli, he's sick, but he's ein b'sakana. Zok the Ramah, no, I don't even need a chayli. I need someone that's not feeling well, and he's going to end up in bed because of that headache that he has. There's no sickness of a headache. A headache doesn't get you sick. A headache is something which is discomfort. That's considered yesh le michush. But that discomfort goes ahead and cholam imenu kol gufay, even though he's walking around, that's considered nafal mishkav. So therefore, if any reason a person has a headache, and the headache could be because he didn't sleep well, the headache could be because he didn't eat, any echatim what got him to this headache, then the person is considered in nafal lemishkav. And again, the Ramah is explaining that even though he didn't end up in bed, but he's a stronger personality. He's a stronger person that knows that the etzim, I would be in bed, but I'm fighting it. It's mutter gomer for him to take a Tylenol, to do anything that a chayli she'ein b'sakana is mutter. So it comes out very clear that even though this person, two nakudas, one nakuda is that this person did not end up in bed. He's fighting it. But he's mutter gomer to go ahead and do the things that a chayla she'ein b'sakana is permitted to do, because that's considered nafal mishkav. Nafal mishkav does not need the metzias of nafal mishkav. Second thing is that even though he is the one that brought it on himself, and the fact that he didn't eat or he didn't sleep, he has a strong headache, it does not make a difference. We don't say that's too bad on you. You should have eaten. You should have gone to sleep. You should have slept. That doesn't play a role here. What plays a role is what the metzias is. How is he feeling right now? If right now he's feeling that he has a michush, he has a headache, that got him to feel that he has to be nafal mishkav, then we tell him that it's mutter as a regular chayla she'ein b'sakana. Now, the question is as follows. If a person, he's going to go to bed, and the bed won't help him anyways. Is that considered a chayla she'ein bei sakana? Which means, I'll be pashtus when you read the Mechaber, you feel that the Mechaber is telling you, we're saving you from not going into your bed. You're chayla she'nafal mishkav, and now you're gonna do this malacha, this d'Rabbanan, or take this pill, and that's gonna help you instead of the nafal mishkav. That's gonna take you out of it. Then we permit you to do the malacha. But let's say the nafal mishkav won't help you anyways. Then you're a different league. Then we just play a role to go ahead and do a refuah if it's not going to help you for the nafal mishkav anyways. Which means if you're going to have to take the Tylenol and you're going to end up in bed anyways, if you're going to do this malacha d'Rabbanan and you're going to end up in bed anyways, do we give you a heta now to be over on the d'Rabbanan or take the Tylenol of the Gzeres Chikas HaMamanim, or then we say no, if it's not helping you from getting out of bed, we won't give you the heta. That's a shayla. I asked this to Abelsky also, and he told me about it's mutter. Once you got into the category of a chayla she'ein bei sakana, even though it's not going to get you out of the bed, you're still going to be in bed. But since you are considered a chayla she'ein bei sakana, it's mutter to do the refuah that we'll discuss in this sif. So again, that's a very important nakuda. Although you never know, you take the true. But let's say you do know. Let's say you get this headache every single day, and you know that by going ahead and taking Tylenol, it doesn't help you. But you're gonna have, let's say, a better sleep or whatever it'll do. It doesn't help you. It's still mutter because you went into the category of chayla she'ein bei sakana. So now,
Rosh, feel free to leave the questions that come in the chat to answer at the end. If it's more nicha for you, because we don't want to.
No, it's okay. I like to see the questions. Yeah. Forget. I mean, I don't know how to read it.
Whatever is better for you.
Okay. Thank you. So again, we're saying that this heter of chayla she'ein bei sakana to take a Tylenol doesn't mean that the Tylenol is going to get rid of it. If you were considered already enough al mishkav, it's mutter for you to go ahead and continue on with your heterim of chayla she'ein bei sakana. Now, the question is, which is also a very important nakuda, is you finish your day, you suda in the day, you finish whatever it is, and you have a headache. You have two options. You could go to sleep, which you do anyways every week, or you could take a Tylenol and stay up, and you're okay with going to sleep. Do you have a heter now to take a Tylenol and to stay up? Or we tell you you're going to sleep, just go to sleep. If I could take care of the chayli without doing a malacha, without taking a pill, without doing anything, should I rather go ahead and do this malacha, get rid of the chayli by doing a ba'ifan heter? Again, so we know, which I'm not going to go into. I think Rabbi Gottesman told me that was last week's shmooze about by chayla she'esh bei sakana, the Londinsky shir, if it's hutra, the chuya, hakal tchila, the gemara menachos, the gemara nyuma. That was the gather of once I'm taking chayli, once I'm being mechal Shabbos, could I go ahead and do the chamad gaves, or I'm obligated to do hakal tchila? Now we're discussing a different shayla. We're discussing by a chayla she'ein bei sakana that could go to sleep and he'll get rid of the chayli. He'll get rid of the headache. Is he obligated to go to sleep, or we tell him no? Since right now you're considered a chayla she'ein bei sakana, you are permitted to go ahead and take a pill, take a Tylenol to help you, take anything that would help you to become ice chayla she'ein bei sakana. And like we just discussed, the Rama that chayla she'ein bei sakana doesn't just mean a chayli, any discomfort that's mitzvah and cholim imenu kol gufa. So this is a machlekes hapaiskim. We paskin that you are not obligated to go to sleep, even though that's the norm. For you, it's normal to go to sleep because you have a headache, you lay down. It's a normal thing. Shabbos afternoon, you're going to sleep. If you don't want to go to sleep, it's mutter gomer to take Tylenol. This doesn't go into the geder of hakal tchila. because this puts me from the ged of chayla she'ein b'sakana to a person that doesn't have any chayla at all. This puts me in the category of a chayla she'ein b'sakana. Once I'm in the category of a chayla she'ein b'sakana, it's permitted mutter gomer lekatchila to take ta'anol, even though I was able to take it with going to sleep. I was able to get rid of it with going to sleep. Or let's say, not like the Akdama we gave from Abelsky, that someone that has heartburn, and he goes into the category of a chayla she'ein b'sakana. Let's say he's in the category of chayla she'ein b'sakana, and he can get rid of the heartburn by eating almonds or by drinking milk or whatever. A person can go ahead, but it's permitted mutter lekatchila to go ahead and take tums, even if a wood on the tzad of the paiskim, that tums, he's considered chayla she'ein b'sakana, because since we put him in the category of a chayla she'ein b'sakana, he doesn't have to go ahead and do a different echetimtza. He could go ahead and put himself into any oifen heter that he would do b'chayil, which is taking tums, it would be mutter gam. And again, so too, if he would have to go to sleep to get rid of the headache, and this is a normal scenario, that a person has a headache after a suda, after whatever period of time, and he feels that he has to go to sleep, and he knows that when he goes to sleep, he'll wake up an hour, he'll feel better. It's mutter for him right now to take the tanel, because right now he's in the geda of chayla she'ein b'sakana, which we give you the teim of schikas hamamonim. Again, that's not the gay of this shir per se, but this anything that we're going to discuss now about what the teim of a chayla she'ein b'sakana include. Now, the Ramah was Meisef again and said meichus shemitztayev v'chola mimenu kol gufay, which means it can't be that you think that just a plain headache is included in this heter. It has to be a headache that it's not a ged of chayla she'ein b'sakana because it's just a meichus ba'alma, but it has to be that it's chola mimenu kol gufay. It's not enough that you have a meichus and just your head hurts. Through that, it has to be that mitztayev v'chola mimenu kol gufay, your whole body feels weak, and that's when the Chazal told us, that's when the Maggid Mishnah told us this halacha, and which the Ramah is quoting, that that's considered enough al mishka. But if someone just has a headache and is able to function, it's not chola mimenu kol gufay, then we don't say it goes into the category of meichus to give you this heter of a chayla she'ein b'sakana. That's a very wichtige nekuda, that this mitztayer, this meichus that we're giving you a heter, since it's not really a chayla she'ein b'sakana, it's less than a chayla she'ein b'sakana, it's a meichus ba'alma, which means, again, a mashal that everyone uses is a headache. The only time that it's mutter to go ahead and take tanel, that's only when from that headache it's chola mimenu kol gufay. From that headache it's not chola mimenu kol gufay, you will not have the heter to go ahead and take the tanel or whatever they assume we're going to be, you're trying to be mekla. That's a very important nakuda. On this, yes, okay, this Eli brought up a very good nakuda, legabe heartburn. Again, the shir is not legabe schikas hamamonim, so I wasn't gonna, schikas hamamonim is a whole shir for itself, which is very, very negeya, more negeya than most of these in Yonim, because over there that's ma'asim b'chal yom that people try to take pills for any sickness, and we can't discuss that. But if you remember, what?
We will have a share next week.
Okay, good. Okay, fine.
I should say here's planned.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so we'll get, whatever will be discussed in Mitzvah. But he's bringing up a good nakuda, which I hope was discussed earlier by when he dealt with chayla she'ein b'sakana, which is that heartburn. Even if someone does have heartburn, what making it sakana is not today. It's going to be in 20 years from now. I don't know the mitzias, but that's what this Eli brought up, and that's a big nakuda for the chayla she'ein b'sakana, which I'm sure you discussed the Shash and Yuma, the Peidalid, and that's really negeya any time that someone takes medicine for strep throat or anything like that today, as matzav shehu is not a chayla she'ein b'sakana, it could take a few days. So maybe it's not mutter for him to start on Shabbos. That's not for today's shir. That's more like the letter Rachestam saying that a heartburn sometimes mild may take years, but sometimes it can go quicker. So that comes into that shaila, which I'm sure you discussed in prior shiurim about the chayla she'ein b'sakana. If it's mutter today, or I should wait to take the medicine on Sunday, because most people don't die from strep in one day. It takes them many months or I don't know, weeks or months to grow on the person, that it should really be a chayla sheyesh b'sakana. But okay, that's not for now. So again, we're getting back to chayla sheyesh b'sakana. So we explained what a chayla sheyesh b'sakana is. Either it's a sickness that is within itself a chayla sheyesh b'sakana, or the Rama was meisif another gather for Negeya, which is a Mechash Ba'alma, but that Mechash makes such tzanim, and because of that, it's Chalim Menikal Gufay. So even though, Dr. Rama, that he's not going to bed because of it, but that's already considered Kanafal Mishkav, and Nafal Mishkav is really the bottom, to categorize what's called a Chayla Sheyesh b'sakana, someone that's Nafal Mishkav, and we explain that it doesn't have to, the person knows that couldn't give that. Okay, fine. Now, what are the chatimtzis that it's mutter? So the mechaber goes along, what are we allowed to do for chayla she'ein by sakana? So the mechaber says, the first shita is, oimrim la'eina Yehudi lasais le'refua. We tell a guy to go ahead, it's permitted to tell a guy. Normally we know that you're not allowed to tell a guy, it's a shvus. You're not allowed to go tell a guy to do a malacha for you on Shabbos. Therefore, even if you think that the guy is permitted, it's asa. Amir la'akum, you know that's also Siman Shechanah. Amir la'akum is asa. But the chayla she'ein by sakana, the first day in the Shechanah says, Aimim la'en Yehudi lasas le'refua, but ein mechal malvas Shabbos b'isa d'oraisa. To be mechal Shabbos on isa d'oraisa, that cannot be done. So you could tell a guy to go ahead and do this refuah for Issa D'Rabbanan. Then the next shita is the Yeshayim Mishem Yesh Bei Sakanas Eva. We'll skip that. The Yeshayim Mishem Ein Bei Sakanas Eva Oisim B'Shinui. That is the next shita, that if a person goes ahead and there's Ein Bei Sakanas Eva Oisim B'Shinui, and then he goes further. The Yeshayim Afal Yesh Bei Sakanas Eva Ein Oisim Le'Dava Shu Nismach L'Mlacha D'Oraisa. Again, you learned it today. It's getting late. I see. We have to a little bit run through the sheetas and we'll come to the maskana. So the mechaber ends off with divrei hasvara hashlishis near. Now, what is that svara hashlishis? So the Mishabur brings it down Bekitza and explains to us in Sifkatan on Zion, Hainu shemutil lasais afilu kol hashvusim v'rak ayidei shinu. You're allowed to go ahead and do all the rabbanans, but how are you allowed to do the rabbanan? Ayidei Yeshivim. Now, emuchayli kol aguf ve'ein by sakana seva. This is all discussing if he's a chayli kol aguf and there's no sakana seva. Im yesh by sakana seva, the Mishabur continues, if there is a sakana seva, ein tzarich shinui klal. So again, so the Mechaber tells us, and this is what we paskin, that we paskin like the Svara Shlishis. What is that Svara Shlishis? That you're allowed to go ahead and be matir any malacha d'Rabbanan ayidei shinu. That is the bottom line heter for chayla she'ein by sakana. Something which is issa d'Rabbanan, you're allowed to go ahead and do it ayidei shinu. So that is when we're makel. That is the ikashita that we paskin, that someone who's a chayla she'ein by sakana is not going to die from the sickness. He is allowed to go ahead and do issa d'Rabbanan through a shina. Now, the question is, if there's a guy that could do this malacha, are you allowed to go ahead? Is he Yisrael allowed to do it, or is mechuyev to tell a guy to do it? This shaila is a big shaila by a chayla sheyesh b'sakana, which is a machlokes, the Taz and the Ramah. That's in Shinchav Chesif Yud Beis. Should I rather tell a guy to be Mechal Shabbos for this yid that's a chayla sheyesh b'sakana, or I should rather tell a yid? The Ramah says that in a scenario where it won't be any, you're not chayshish any atzlus, you tell a yid. The Taz goes strongly connected that, and the Taz says that the Ramah says that a guy should do it if there's not going to be any atzlus by the guy doing it. The Taz. And that's what the Mishabura Paskins, and that's what we Paskin, that's Negei Legabe Atzala. Any time we're makel on a yid doing it, unless we know bevadai that a guy is going to do just as good as the job, we tell that a yid could do it. So now, going to chayla she'ein by sakana. The Chayla Shem Sakana, where the option are a yid to do the malacha d'Rabbanan, ba'ofen shinui, which we just said, the Svara Shlisha says it's completely mutter, or telling a guy to do it. Is it better to tell the guy to do it or the yid to do this malacha d'Rabbanan ba'ofen shinui? So this is a big machlekes in the Rishonim. The Agayas Ashri and Ksubis, the Rashba and Shabbos Daf Tzadi Hey, Taisus Rosh and Tzadi Hey, says that it's mutter to tell a yid to do it. Other Rishonim argue and they say no, that it should be done with the guy. Now, that's one nakuda. Another nakuda is important to know is that when I'm doing it with a yid, and he's doing it by Ofen Shinui, we read you the Mishabura that says that by Shvus it should be done with a Shinui. Is that true also by a Dairaisa? Could a yid go ahead and do this malacha by Dairaisa? Avada, you should do it through a guy if you have to. But if there's no guy available, could a yid do a malacha Dairaisa? The halacha is of Shlomo Zalman. Again, there's a big arichas on this, and you see the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan says Ta'asa, but Shlomo Zalman, Rav Vosner, the Olet Zion, and many other poskim say that if it's efshai de guy, it's mutter gam b'Yisrael de shine. Again, we just discussed two cases. One case was that I have a guy that could do this malacha, and I have a yid that could do that. We're discussing the Rabbanan. I have a yid that could do the malacha the Rabbanan de shine. Better to do it a guy. Another shayla. If I don't have a guy, could a yid do the malacha? And we're dealing with a malacha d'Oraisa. Could a yid do a malacha with shine? The Mishabura discussed a malacha d'Rabbanan. How about a malacha d'Oraisa? Halacha l'maisa, if he's stuck and there's no guy, it's mutter for the yid to do it at shine. So now, if a person has a light left on in his room, and there's a chayla she'en by sakana, we're not going to get into now electricity if it's the Iraisa or the Abana. That's a discussion with the Chazanish we all know about. We're discussing here, it's a chayla she'en by sakana and there's no guy. Are you allowed to turn off the light because he wants to go to sleep, ba'ofen shinui, which means shut off the light with your elbow? Why? Because that's a shinui. That shutting off the light through an elbow is considered a shinui, which itself is debatable, because that's a whole shit for itself. Also, if shinui is din in the maisa or in the payil yaitza, which means there's no difference if in the light, once it's on and once it's off, how you opened it. A shinui normally makes an effect to the payil yaitza, to the outcome. Over here, in this scenario, you did the malacha ba'ofen shinui, which means you opened the light with your elbow and not the way you normally open it, but the outcome was the same. Is that considered a shinui? That's a big machlekes in the Heintige Paiskim, and it really resolves around the sugya of bishul b'chama, if it tastes different, and that's where it comes into shaila of microwave. That's a whole different shmooze. But that's very relevant to this shaila because many scenarios come out when we're dealing with a shinui here. We're dealing with a chayla that you can do with a shinui, and a chayla she'en b'sakana, you think that many times a chayla she'en b'sakana is not so shchiach, let's say. But every child has a din of chayla she'en b'sakana. So the child is going to sleep. It's Friday night, and the child is not going to sleep well with the light on. You don't have a guy in the vicinity. You're looking for a guy. You don't have a guy. So, first of all, the shayach is the Rabbanan. But even if it's the Rabbanan, the Mishabura says you have to do it with a shinui. So is it mutter gomer to go ahead and close the light in your child's room? How? With your elbow. It's a regular chayla she'en b'sakana. We're not going into the get. It's a big machlekes. What age of a child is considered chayla she'en b'sakana? But let's say till 4, and others, till 4 is definitely a chayla she'en b'sakana. Any child, any chayli, anything to the child is considered chayla she'en b'sakana. So if so, halacha l'maisa, are you allowed to go ahead and close the light ba'ofen shinui? Another case, which comes up now very frequent in the winter. you have a child that has a cough. And during the week, what you would do is you would bring him into the bathroom and open up the shower on hot, complete. And the steam of the shower is going to help him breathe, help him through his cough. We're not discussing a whooping cough, which is but he's congested. So for a child under 4 years old, he's congested. That could bring him to ear infection. That could bring him to poop. Right? Yeah. So therefore, is it mutter to go ahead and open the hot water of the shower by Finshina? He's a chaylu shemer sakana. We don't know what turning on hot water is. Is that the Yaisa, the Rabbanon, a grama, Segresha? That's another whole discussion. So, but let's say even if it's the Yaisa, because we told you that many shittas, and that's what Shlomo Zalman Paskins and Avazna Paskins and most Gedolei Paiskin Paskin, not like the Aruch HaShulchan, that if it's the Yaisa and it's the Efshai de Akum l'chayra, it should be mutter b'Yisrael ayidei shina. Not the way the Mishnah Berurah is trying to explain that mutter lasses are filikal shus and nakadei shina, even when it's not a shina. Sorry, even when it's not a shus, even when it's the Yaisa. So the shaila of electricity, we might be the Yaisa. The shaila of a shower might be the Yaisa. Is that of bishul? Is that going to be mutter to do ayidei shinui, which is opening it up with your elbow in order to go ahead and do this malacha? Those are two very, very negeya digashaylas after learning this Sif Yud Zayin. So, is that considered a shinui? There's once a story with Rabbi Taplin told this over to me, Rabbi Yisrael Taplin, so he told me that once in Lakewood, when Abraham was still alive, the lights were off, and they told the guy, the Bachram in Yeshiva couldn't learn. So they called the guy, and they told him to open up the lights of Mismadrash. So he told me Rabbi Aaron was makpid, and he said that don't be saimech on the shita se'iter, which we know that even by one shvus b'makam mitzvah's mutter. He told them that what they should tell the guy is to open the light ayidei shina, which means through your elbow. That's going to be considered a shvus to shvus b'makam mitzvah. Taking out of that story, we see that Rabbi Aaron felt that Shino is considered also not that the Paliyotz is different. The fact that you did the Ma'aseh Malacha, but Oifen Shino, it's mutter gomer ayidei shvus ba'ofen Shino. Again, so therefore you don't even need to look for a guy. In a case of a shvus, it's mutter to go ahead and they doing it a day Shino. That Ma'aseh in itself is many other chedushim, not for negay for now, and the chedushim and Amir La'akim that. But Akapanama, we'll just bring out one akuda from that story is that opening a light through your elbow, Reb Aaron felt that that's considered a shina. There are chalkim on this. I know there are chalkim on this. Moshe and Shuv and Even Ezer, Pashtus is chalik, and the others, Megillah Sefer Ezer, Riches and Sebchatz Gurot, told me not like this, but Akapanam. We have enough to be Saimachan, which is Reb Aaron Kotler that felt that doing something, just the fact that you're doing a shina in the Maisa, that's considered a shina. So negate our cases of a child not being able to fall asleep because the light is on. If you have another bedroom to put him in, there's no reason to be makel. There's no reason to be makel. You have another bedroom, it doesn't even go together of a kal. This is b'chlal. We don't consider him, it's not be'etzim that he's a chayli, the fact that he can't sleep. If he can sleep someplace else, that's considered that he can sleep. That doesn't go into the shaila that we discussed earlier, that he's a chayil sheish b'sakana if he has to go to sleep, or take a tam. We gave you a heter to take a tam, or take a tanel. That's because he is a chayil sheish b'sakana. A child only becomes a chayil sheish b'sakana when there's a chayli. So if there's no chayli, there's no chayli yet, he doesn't have the headache, he doesn't have anything, just the fact that he can't fall asleep, so make sure put him in some place where he could fall asleep. But let's say there's no echatimtza, you don't have a place where you can fall asleep. Therefore, Zalman was machma on what nakuda? Rabbi Harari, I'm not sure. Machma on the shini part? On the shini, okay. Yes, I know that Shlomo Zalman, right? But again, we're dealing now with a chayil she'emes sakana. So turning off the light by Ofen Shinui is not so simple. First of all, because it's a malacha d'oraisa. Second of all, most of the times you're going to be able to find him. It might be discomfort for you, but that doesn't make him a chayla she'ein b'sakana. The reason that he's going to have to now sleep in your room and you're going to have to be quieter because he's in your room, that doesn't consider him a chayla she'ein b'sakana. So the two shilas that we discussed, and again, there's many echatimtzis, but the shaila of a child not being able to sleep in the room because the light's on, or a child that needs for his digestion, for whatever it is, for his congestion, for the shower on, those are two different shilas. When he can sleep and there's any echatimtzah to save him from that not being able to sleep, he doesn't go into the gather of chayla she'ein b'sakana, and even though for you it's going to be discomfort, it's going to stay your sleep, you don't have the heter to turn on the light because we have chalkim on of iron, and that's not considered a shina. So he never went into the pasha of chayla she'ein b'sakana. But if in the same case there's no other way that he could sleep, there's no other place that he could sleep, then there are poskim that are mekel. But again, first and foremost is to know that you can't put him in that gather. You have to try to give him a different room to sleep in. That's number one. The other shayla that we discussed, Legabe, turning on the shower, then you definitely should be mekel. Because first of all, you don't know, it could be for the child, it's a chayla she'esh b'sakana. That's number one. Number two is, it goes into the gather, we have enough to be saimachan of this of iron, that it's considered a shinoi. So in a chayla she'ein b'sakana, a shinoi, there's enough gather to say that it might be only the rabbanon, and therefore, it'll be mutter to go ahead and turn it on ba'ofen shinoi. To turn it off, that's another shayla. If it's right before the end of Shabbos, we don't give you a heter, even though it's going to cost you money, we don't give you a heter to turn it off ba'ofen shinoi. But if it's the beginning of the night and you worry that you're going to run out of the hot water, then you're allowed to turn it off again ba'ofen shinoi because it's a tir sefer shem chilasan, and that's pashut that will let you. Again, there's many cases I thought I would get to. I don't see the time to it. There's really a lot more to be discussed in chayla she'ein b'sakana. Just one more nakuda is legabe being mesiv daita. We started off with the Magid Mishnah. But the Magid Mishnah by chayla she'esh b'sakana, the Magid Mishnah said together that you're allowed to go ahead and be makel on things that even won't help him for the sakana. He enjoys it. The Magid Mishnah said it's mutter. If he enjoys watching the news, he enjoys watching the news. Again, try to avoid it. We said the nachal nizad, but if he's not listening to you, me'ikar adin, we go with the Magid Mishnah that it's mutter. Me'iri and other shaynim that it's mutter. How about a chayla she'ein b'sakana? Things that aren't going to go ahead and help him for this chayli. So really that depends on, and I'm sure you discussed it when you discussed the Magid Mishnah and all those halachas. What's the reason to the Magid Mishnah? Why are you really allowed to save him for these things that aren't going to help him for a sickness? Why? What's the pshat in that heter? So there's Svaras Al Tutcha, there's Avnei Nezer, and there's a beautiful Shach written in Yeshurun. I'm sure you all know who the mechaber to that is. Chelik Yud Aleph, Amid Tavshin Yud. The Shach gives a different explanation, which is pashtus in the Avnei Nezer, also in the Chaim Simitaf Nun Gimel. Most of those timing do not apply for chayla she'ein b'sakana. That's very important. Nakuda. Don't go ahead and learn chayla she'ein b'sakana and then bring those applications to chayla she'ein b'sakana and try to be matter by something which is not for the refuah. It's just l'yisur v'daite. Over there we paskin. Rabelsky told me that also, and that's pashut, that over there we are not makel for the reason of things that are just going to be mesiv daite. Okay, again, it was a schus of Shlomo to speak for this crowd, especially. I feel the schus is so much greater when there's inauguration for a president and you have Talmidei Chacham sitting and learning and being oimid v'oimke shal Torah, how much greater of a schus that is for us. Elu amelim ve'enu mekam mischa, anu amelim mekam mischa, we should all be zeicha to have clarity in the sugya and realize that this is what gives us the life, and this gives us the connection to the Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimlech Le'Navad. We should be zeicha vayta to continue on and no one should have not a dagger chas v'shalom of chayla sheyesh b'sakana and kolshkein v'kolshkein, not a dagger of chayla she'ein b'sakana. I think one thing very negaya to discuss, I'm just thinking now, is taking your temperature, especially now with this Rahman al-Islam, this chayli that hasn't left us yet, is a person should rather try to have I don't know if they even make it anymore, the thermometers that aren't electric, but a thermometer that's electric. So normally, Rebelsky told me that a person's not stomach, they allowed to go ahead and take his temperature on Shabbos. He said, if you're not feeling well, then you're allowed to take Talmud. If you're not for the Mishkav, why are you taking your temperature? But over here, that does not apply to today. Because today, if someone feels Rahman al-Islam, that he's not well, and he might have COVID, someone today has temperature, it's mutter for him to take his temperature, even though it's electric. He should do it by Finchinu was saying, because that's very negaya to know if he has to go on oxygen level or anything like that. Don't be machmir. We learned the sugya that you have to do by Finchinu and the Chayla Shem Zakana. That is 100% mutter today to do, because today it's a whole different category. It's not just like you just want to know your temperature. It's something that's relevant to know your temperature, to know if you have to go to the hospital, whatever it is. So that is not relevant. That child is not relevant to today.